Welcome to Meet Me in the Penthouse. I am Amy, along here with my sister Molly. We help high-achieving women increase their income, but most importantly, their impact. We are neighbors, sisters, and business partners. We have built 8-figure businesses together, traveled the world together, raised our children together, mentored thousands of men and women together, and it's all because we have a penthouse mindset. We aim for the top, and we show others how to empower themselves to peel back the layers and truly step into their greatness and calling. Welcome to Meet Me in the Penthouse. Welcome to Meet Me in the Penthouse. I'm Amy Mosser with my sister Molly Croker. We help high-achieving women not only increase their income, but most importantly, their impact. And today we have Renee Welk with us and talk about a woman who has increased her impact with all of the lives that she has served. I want to just read a little bit about Renee. Renee has mentored and coached for 3 decades. Molly and I have known her, I think, most of those 3 decades. We've been so blessed to have her in our life. Her work evolved from working with kids and students to student athletes, wellness clinics, and entrepreneurs. She transitioned her mentorship into print with her book, Ease the Chaos, and that's what we're here to talk about today. It's an incredible book where she shares real stories of finding peace while navigating the struggles that come with change and growth. She talks about the thoughts, feelings, sensations, and perceptions that we experience in moments of chaos in order to find peace. I love the word peace. And continue working toward life by design. So your book, I am like, when I saw that you were writing it, of course, I was not surprised. But share with us, how did the book come about?
Yeah, thank you. Well, about 5 years ago, I had an idea actually to start a nonprofit. There's someone in my life who was almost homeless and housing became an issue. So we're going to gloss over that part. And I started thinking about just you can give a hand up, but when you give a hand out, nobody has changed or learned anything in order to keep whatever it is that is given, right? So I started writing down all of these ideas of just mentorship ideas for people who might be involved in that someday. And then I decided, why am I waiting to have this huge nonprofit when I can start to have these conversations with everyday people who really want to rise up, level up, do the next best thing, but for whatever reason are stuck or hindered. And so I thought, I'm just going to start, each of these ideas became a chapter.
Okay, Renee, because I remember we were coaching together. We both had the same coach, and we've known each other probably for 15 years at least. And so I remember that specific incident where that happened. And I had no idea then that you took an inventory and made these into chapters. Like, that's brilliant. Because I remember back then it was very much, and this is great for anybody listening, that, you can always pivot. So thinking I'm going down, and you worked hard at this nonprofit, like you were on a mission to create this, and it was a massive undertaking. And tell us a little bit more about that, because I think that's so interesting, especially if somebody thinks this is my calling, this is my purpose, I'm headed down this road, and you dove into that hard.
Yeah, I still haven't started it transparently because
Okay.
there are a couple things I want to put in place. However, I'm doing research along the way, and that is the lesson, right? We think, okay, I'm going
Yeah.
to do this thing, and then you start and realize, unlike Amy, I don't know much about real estate. And so I am doing my due diligence in all of those areas, but it doesn't have to stop us from thinking that we're capable or that it can happen someday. I think we expect too much in a year, not enough in 5 or 10
Yeah.
years. And then that's the whole point of the book, is right there. That was a shift, because I could have just said, I'm not ready. I don't know. I took this class and realized how many things I still need to work out before I get started. And instead, it just slowed my process a little, made it more thoughtful. And then something else sprung up that has been a huge gift while I'm in the process of building that. But what I saw so much in the last probably 5 years is people giving up on their dreams right when something doesn't go quite as planned. And I've labeled that part of coping mechanisms, but also it's just that knowing and experience of once you get into something new, realizing it's not exactly what or how you thought it would be. And so really being able to learn and get a new experience so that your perspective can align with what you're doing in order to move forward. So I just don't want people to give up on themselves or their dreams or their life by design too soon. I just saw that so much that it was breaking my heart a little bit.
I love what we were talking about before we hit record is your favorite chapter. So I have about 9 million questions, but your favorite chapter, because I mean, I think this is really good to share because writing a book isn't easy
Linear.
or
Yeah.
linear. And so, we can talk about that too, but let's talk about your favorite chapter because that was definitely, it wasn't going to be in the book. And now it's one of our favorites.
There are
And
lots of things that aren't in the book that I thought would be and things that I added in. I don't know if the one we were talking about is my favorite chapter. It's at the very end. So it's after people have already started on the, I'm going to say easier things to process, but the one we were talking about was called Surrender. And there is a time when that's okay. And my initial editor did not love that chapter and made some very interesting comments that made me use all the principles in my book, including like, where's my support system? Who knows me? What are my values? What do I want? Like, what are my intentions? I had to call my support system and say, hey, I really enjoyed this chapter. I feel like if I don't put it in there, that it's missing something because sometimes we can do everything right. Circumstances can be right. And the answer is still surrender. And surrender doesn't mean giving up. It just
I,
means letting go of controlling the things that are out of our control. And so after a few therapy sessions with my life coach, business coach, couple of my best friends who I know will tell it to me straight, like, yeah, Renee, that chapter is sounding a little X, Y, or Z. Maybe you should listen to that editor. I made a couple of changes and found a new editor, and she actually said that was the strongest chapter and she really enjoyed it. So it also shows everyone has a different perspective. But the chapter, Wear the Crown, do you care if I just read a little bit? Because
no, that would be
It's my
great.
favorite. It is my favorite.
okay, so this is the one part that's fiction. The rest are my stories, but it's page 213. If anyone gets the book, author note, I wish I would have put this at the beginning and the end because it sets you up for the type of thinking that you're going to do. But it's called Wear the Crown. So it says, imagine the most adorable little 4-year-old girl. And if you want to do a boy, male, whatever orientation, awesome. I have 2 girls, so this is very easy for me to imagine, but change the clothing, whatever, and you got it. So your favorite child, but imagine the most adorable little 4-year-old girl you have known, standing on her tippy toes as if doing a ballet dance. She's wearing a cute little leotard with a fluffy tutu, her favorite color, of course. In her hand, she's holding a crystal clear glass filled with lemonade and big square ice cubes, a pink metal straw, and one of those fun little drink umbrellas. The ice cubes gently clink against the glass, keeping time to the playful music as she moves. Nestled into her hair rests a petite golden crown that glistens in the spotlight coming down from above. The caption reads, Life, a balancing act. Automatically, my brain goes to, don't spill, little one, be careful when I hear that life is a balancing act, right? How about yours? The thought of this being a balancing act makes me want to caution her. But what if the caption changes to, wear the crown, make a splash? My mind shifts, and maybe yours did too, from a state of hesitation and tension to a calm and even hopeful energy. In my mind, I'm cheering on that little gal to be brave, to be in the moment, and to dance to her heart's content. I don't even notice the lemonade droplets splashing out onto the floor as she glides across it. All I see is her happiness and joy, and I feel it too. True joy has a way of spreading into the hearts and souls of those it reaches. And you guys, that's why I love this podcast is you guys are real. You help us change our perspectives, our mindset shifts. So I want to thank you for doing the work that you do. I wrote down here, a change in perspective is powerful. It can turn a complaint into a compliment and turn a burden into a blessing, which shifts our attitude and changes everything. So I don't know what changes people want to see in their life. And sometimes changes are forced upon us by our circumstances. And sometimes we get to choose, but no matter what, it can be very, very hard. And I wrote down a couple of examples of like what I think this book can help people get through. But I had a relative who moved across the country for a job, already in a position, moved across. And within a short period of time, that company eliminated that position nationwide. And this person had a non-compete. So the only people that they knew in that new area were people through their work and then a couple other relationships. A friend of mine had a restaurant during COVID and lost it because of the loss of revenue during that time. Started a new one. I don't know if it was 2022, and last year it burned down to the ground. You guys, these are huge
Wow.
things that no one can control. Sometimes they're our choice, right? We decide we want to stay at home after becoming a parent, and we think we have more time when I have so many friends who do that, and it's like, surprise, there is no structure. You really don't own your own time when you have kids. Like when you go to work, you can at least take a bathroom break when it's necessary instead of waiting for your child to calm down or whatever. But small things like we want to have more patience or a better relationship with our teen or our partner or a parent. Maybe we want to start eating better or fitting in 15 minutes of stretching or meditation a day. We know we want to do those things and make those changes, but why is it so hard? Like it doesn't have to be hard like a fire. And by the way, that friend of mine has a truck now for a restaurant and a temporary location, is rebuilding. The other
Awesome.
relative has gone through another job to get to a job that they love. They're staying in that area, but it wasn't without the hard. But you guys, either way, whether it's choice, big, small, put upon us, it takes that shift in skill set and mindset. And as we grow through it and we go through that change, we gain a perspective that allows us to shift from don't spill, a balancing act, to okay, wear the crown and make a splash. But it's not without, like, I wrote this down, like, a lot of times before we get to there, our fears, our doubts, our insecurities start to run into our thoughts, which makes us exhausted, tired, stressed, overwhelmed, scared, feeling like things are impossible. But then those thoughts become our actions, where then, like, I become defensive a little bit when I am in that kind of a mindset. Some people become withdrawn or retreat, which is actually a chapter in the book. It slows down our progress. We start seeking validation instead of betterment because we can't take that constructive criticism just because we're already in that insecure mode. So I hope that change in perspective, every chapter, I hope it wraps you in bubble wrap. So when you start feeling something like that, you're like, okay, I don't have to act like I normally do when this happens. Now I'm figuring out that this happens. This is who I am. It's okay to be who I am. It's great to be alive, human, have feelings. I don't have to be a robot, but how can I better myself in order to react differently and have a change in perspective? And I wrote down a change in perspective. Then instead of feeling the stress, feeling the chaos, we can feel the peace. We can have hope. It gives us courage, which leads to confidence. It's empowerment. And then we have that solid foundation of knowing who we are so we can rise up again. And so I just want to hug every human that's going through the things and just feels like they have lost hope, they have lost their courage, they don't feel empowered, and see if there's a way that we can shift our thoughts so that our actions can shift and change what's happening in our life to live more by design. So I titled it Ease the Chaos, a guide through growth and change to help you live a life by design. And that's a little bit of the longer story.
I love it. I love it. So who's the audience that you would love to have to read this?
I know it might sound a little crazy that you're supposed to have like a niche, but I think it's the person longing for more, who knows they're meant for more, but for some reason they haven't unlocked how to make that happen. Something in one of the chapters is called the undertow. Like they have this great idea. You're going on the ocean, it's this beautiful wave. I don't know if any of you have then been like your legs whipped out from under you in the ocean. But I feel like as soon as we're like, yes, I want that, I want a better relationship with my teen, but then they sneak out and we go back to our own habits and like the whole goal is ripped out from under us. Or you say, I'm going to start working out. And then you get sick and you're like, okay, like, and so just people who know that they want to better themselves or people who are already doing that, but want a little more bubble wrap because they know there are going to be stressful seasons. They know there are going to be obstacles, and maybe have someone's hindsight be their foresight to make the path a little straighter and a little less up and down emotionally.
I love the bubble wrap. You have mentioned bubble wrap a few times, and I can picture that analogy, and I love it that someone else's hindsight be your foresight. Yes, that's what you said, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm like, did I just repeat that wrong? But I love that is, so really your audience is there, it's not gender specific, it is just a human who needs to understand that everything is happening for them in the most miraculous way. As you were talking, I always think everything is happening for them. Even in the ocean, when your legs are swept out from underneath you, it's happening for you. And again, I think you've created a beautiful community with this book, and as you've gone on your book tours and all of that, I know there's a community that's been created by the readers, and you just naturally have done that. And as an entrepreneur, you have a huge community. I see all of the stuff on Facebook, and I'm friends with you and we've traveled together, so I know that you do. So this is just another piece of building a beautiful community.
Yeah, that's actually one of my goals this year. I moved my vision board so it wouldn't be in the way. And I don't know that you knew this, but that is one of the things that I have on here is building a healthy living community. And that's also a healthy mindset, right? That's what everything is based on. Now I'll put this back. So since everyone knows what it is. But
Well,
yeah,
and body, mind, spirit. Like, right? I think we're all coming into that phase of life where it's like, it's not just the physical part, it's not just the spiritual part. It's all of it. It's all of it.
and you guys are building that with your, morning
Mm,
calls, and you're building a community and the mindset. And if we have those two things, I really feel like we can have more courage and gain that confidence to keep taking the next steps, right? We have to know who we are, which is what you guys are helping people figure out. I want people to love themselves, their whole selves, even the things they don't like, to know that they're an amazing human and that we could spend all day working on the things that aren't so great about ourselves that we really don't even love. But if we spend a fraction of that time using the parts that are the gifts that we were given, we can move mountains, and we can then hire people who can do the things that we can't, or we can work on them like behind the scenes. But if we only dwell on that, it really takes us down a different path than knowing who we are and what we're good at and just using that. Like if you're joyful, use your joy to spread, and you don't have to be great on social media. I mean, it just depends on what people's gifts are. And I really hope that this book can also help people realize that and love their whole selves.
So it doesn't matter if they are a CEO, a CTO, a college student, a
No,
stay-at-home dad, I mean, it could be anyone. That's what we're saying is, yes, should you have your caviar client with some books? You do. But for this, that's the beautiful is you've got a broad range, a big scope. And so that means more people can buy it.
we're human, so we have some innate characteristics like fear and motivation and
Yes.
insecurities. So I will say, I will put this out there because I know it to be true. I would love to do more books. I don't have the wisdom and the experience to write for every like genre or audience, but there are people who do. And like, I could really see writing something like this for someone who's going into medicine, because to have someone die on your watch is not something that I've experienced, but it's definitely something that I want my daughter who wants to be a nurse to be wrapped in bubble wrap. And no, I mean, there are mind things that we have to learn and deal with in every profession. Like when I was a teacher, I would go home every once in a while. I remember like 3 instances where my tummy just hurt because I knew I did not handle a situation great with the teenager. And I would have to go back and say, I apologize. I did not handle that well. I escalated the situation. Let's figure out a better way. And so, like, I would love to have a teacher book. I mean, realtors, Amy does that. Molly, you've done a triathlon, you've done all of the things. Like, that's a mind game. Everything we choose to do in this life has these lessons that if we know they're coming, then we don't have to quit when they hit us in the face. We're like, oh, Amy said that that would happen. Molly said that would happen. That book said that would happen. This is not me. This is just how life is. It's how the world works. And it feels yucky and it's kind of hard, but I can get through it. And just to give people that perspective shift, like the failing forward, John Maxwell. Like when we hear that, so many people are scared to fail. It's like, okay, now that I know I can just fail forward and learn, and that the real failing is if I don't learn from it and I quit instead and I didn't really want to quit, that's a perspective shift. And I think we all have gifts that we can be sharing. So, yeah, this book is pretty general for the average human. But if I do the next one, it's going to be like parenting or teaching that I have, and then maybe gathering other people for other future ones.
Mhm. Well, and also that leads people like me, right? Like I definitely have strategy in my top 5. Where you and I are very inclusive, Renee. We learned that from coaching. But another thing is just in my head, I can write cards like nobody's business. I can speak, but to actually like write a paper, Calvin always typed, full disclosure, Nebraska Wesleyan, sorry, but he wrote every paper of mine, or my mom did, because my mom's a fabulous writer. So how did that look? Like, walk me through, because yes, you were a teacher, but a Spanish teacher. It's not like you were I always think, oh, somebody needed to like major in journalism, or they loved a journal. There's somebody who loves a journal. And so how does someone like you, who I think is absolutely fabulous, but I would not say I knew you were a writer or I knew you had a book in you. We all have a book in us, but how did that look? Like,
That's interesting because my friend Jamie, she's written several books. Some have been lost in the publishing process. Could you imagine writing a whole book and then it never getting published?
no.
But she has a book out, and she said she knew as a 10-year-old she'd write a book and it would be in the libraries, and she's so excited. That was not me. Like I said, it came as a secondary idea when the nonprofit I knew was going to take a lot longer, but I wanted to get some of these messages out. And honestly, anyone can do it. You have a note section on your phone. As I got ideas, like I stopped running one day to type in an idea because I saw a human standing in my way with a dog, and I run with a dog. And I didn't want to go past the dog because I didn't want to interrupt. The human was a person asking for money on the corner. And so because I love homelessness, I volunteer at the homeless shelter. Not love homeless, it's a passion of mine to help people who are homeless. I have volunteered at the shelter. So I'm like, I don't want him to think I'm avoiding him, but I also don't want to run my dog by this little dog who might be surprised and is a tiny, tiny thing compared to mine. And in my head, I was like, okay, I can just go around the building. This is not a problem. But do you know what I did instead? I stopped because like my normal natural path was interrupted. And even though I was 2 blocks away, that thing that was the obstacle, instead of just slowing down, or I didn't even need to slow down, I could have just changed my path. I stopped, and I'm like, that is a natural instinct. Like when we have an obstacle in our path, we have to stop and think about it, and we da 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 da, and then it makes what's already hard, running, like something you love to do, but it's not like, you know, roses and unicorns. It's like instead my body just stopped. It shut me down. And I was like, how often does that happen to us in real life? So like you can just write something down anytime a thought comes to you. Do you want to help the next person? I would say if you're writing fiction, I have no idea how you develop characters or anything like that, but I think anyone can write. I think every single human, and I've said this before you asked the question, has a lesson that they've learned that would be beneficial and a blessing if they were willing to share it with the next person. But it takes humility, and it takes being humble and putting yourself out there in a vulnerable way. And that's not the easiest thing for us to do as people. So yeah, I think
I love
anyone,
that. I
You
love
kind
that
of dispelled that.
vulnerability and authenticity. I feel like that is like, I'm going to use the word in, but it is. I mean, it's so encouraged, right? Like the more that we really are, I feel like we're kind of in this awakening, and like we see that like that people, that everybody's got a story and that it needs to be shared and everybody needs to be seen and heard and loved. And that vulnerability and authenticity is like such a cool thing that we embrace now instead of being embarrassed about it. So I love that we're willing to do that and by writing that book.
I feel like I have read so many. If you could see my whole shelves full of books over here, I love self-help and self-development books, and I have so many of them. And you read through and like I see Ed Milet's The Power of One More. It's like this one thing to do, right? And I feel like what I wanted to write was taking some of those lessons, but making it human. Yes, do one more rep, but if you already are injured, then how do you help your mindset? When the obstacle arises, then you think, oh, I suck. I can't do one more. Or, like I love that there are these theories and systems and ideas on like atomic habits and they teach you how to do it. But I'm like, I want to be the one that also says, and when it all goes chaotic and you think, I can't do what this person is taught, yes, you absolutely can. There are so many lessons we learn along the way of doing that and implementing these new habits in the way Atomic Habits is showing. It's like, how do you put that human aspect into it? And that's really what I wanted to bring. And if anyone wants to, at the end of every chapter, I tell you to go to the easethechaos.com website because on there is a list. This introduces a topic. Like if I don't want to be defensive or, the one that's called retreat, if people don't want to retreat, it's not reading a chapter and then all of a sudden they no longer retreat. We have to figure it out. So at the end of every chapter, I actually list books that I have personally read or my friends personally recommended for those topics that I vetted. And they can dig in a little bit deeper if they're willing to be vulnerable in some areas themselves.
That's brilliant, actually, Renee, because number one, it doesn't make the chapter 400 pages long. And it also is just like enough of like, here's my experience, if this can help and bless you. And here's some other resources. So I think to me, it's so encouraging hearing you say that because in my head is, okay, for lack of a better author, Danielle Steele, Tom Clancy, I mean, whoever your jam is, but
You're dating
sitting
yourself.
at the typewriter, literally typing, the computer now typing, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's not me. But I just want people to realize that are wired more like us. And in today's world, like it doesn't have to look like sitting down because there's a lot of, I think, incredible women out there that are like, I have 30 seconds to myself every day. You can still get your message out there to people. It doesn't have to look like sitting down for hours and hours and going away on a weekend retreat of just yourself and,
And writing.
newer ways of getting a book out there to me is so encouraging to so many people.
Yeah.
And I'm in the process of writing too. You mentioned notes, Renee, but I do the voice text. I mean, I'm so like, I voice text and then I can print that off and then, combine things. So yes, Renee mentioned like the notes section in our phone because we're all, so, we all have our phones.
When you're showering, you can just holler out at Siri.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Because
Siri, I had a good idea.
they always come in the shower and you're like, well, I can't do that. My hands are wet, but you can. And what I love about this is I look at, yes, when this comes out, there's probably a big holiday coming that you could gift these to. But I also think the thing I always love to do with gifts is like stock up and like have this be your one book that you give to everybody this year. That is so fun. And everybody loves a great book, and especially a quick, insightful read that isn't hard to digest. And it's got just great tactical advice, but it's real and raw too.
Yes. And I must say that the cover is absolutely beautiful. I love blue. I love that the cover is just, and it's just ease the chaos. It's not chaotic. I love that. It's a beautiful, simple, feel-good cover and message and title. Yes.
If you guys don't know Amy and Molly very well, they're very good dressers. Aesthetically, they know what they're doing, right? And that is not a skill of mine, nor is it like a thing that I work on super hard. So it's so funny because my kids, because we do have Instagram too, if you want to follow Ease the Chaos on Instagram, they're like, wow, you're like aesthetically building this, Mom. Like, look, I have on my little blue vest here today that kind of matches.
The wall in the background is that blue?
Influencing.
Yeah, the wall is blue. That was already like that.
Oh,
Yeah. So it's so funny. And I did want it to be calm. It was fun to just like a side note, like author chat, but I put the cover out in various ways to people and had them vote. And there was another one that was like half the votes as well. And it was pixelated changes. It looked chaotic on part of it and then went to peace. But when you glance at that, you don't just think he's the chaos. You think, oh my gosh, there is some chaos. And so we actually decided to go with this one that's just all peaceful. Yeah.
It is.
Nailed
Well,
it.
of course, follow Renee. Do you like people to personally follow you or follow
Either way,
Easy Chaos?
I'm human on the personal social Instagram, Facebook, and then Ease the Chaos is all about the book and about life lessons. I don't do podcasts like the two of you, but I do every once in a while do one just to start people thinking. So, yep. And then if you go to easethechaos.com, you can sign up for the newsletter too. And I send freebies like affirmations, different things throughout the year too. So,
Oh, awesome. I love that. And where can they get your book?
Amazon or locally at Beaverdale Books in Des Moines.
Beaverdale Books. That's my
I
old
know.
stomping grounds. I love that. What an honor to have a bookstore. Like that is so cool. I love that. I love that. Well, and everyone will love the book. It is, well, it just, Renee's just so fabulous. And this is just her. It's just an extension. And I am so proud of you. And it's just an incredible gift. So stock up on it, friends, and make
Right, for
sure
the
you,
new year, I will put that plug in. Like if
yes,
you're
I was, well,
resolution,
I was just
trying to change something.
Yes.
awesome. Yes, exactly. Well, and just, whether it's Valentine's Day, whether it's Easter, I mean, it's an easy one. If you have adult kids that aren't massive readers, they will sit down and read this. So it is a great book for each and everyone to have. So we're so proud of you. We're so excited, Renee. And follow Renee at all the places. And more importantly, go buy the book and gift it. It's such a gift. So you are a gift to us, Renee. Thank you so much. And last question is always about our podcast is called Meet Me in the Penthouse. What does it mean to you to live in the penthouse?
You know what? Since I know you guys, every time I think of that, I think it means living in your highest self, in that mental state of grace for yourself, forgiveness, yet you also want to be ambitious and motivated and just that higher level thinking. So definitely for me, I'm not fancy, but yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
You live in the penthouse.
Yes, you do. You definitely live on the frequency, the vibration, which then attracts these incredible humans into your life. So yes, you do live in the penthouse. So thank you. Thank you, everybody. And
Thank you.
share, subscribe, and get this podcast into your friends' hands as well. We appreciate it. And we appreciate all the 5-star reviews as well. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for tuning in today for Meet Me in the Penthouse with Sisters Amy and Molly. Please rate and review. We love those 5-star ratings and would love to have you go to our website at sistersnextdoor.com.